Okay, so here's our next notes. This is all about Pythagorean theorem and its converse. Should be a review from middle school, but a little bit extra on top of it. So still pretty easy though. So let's get this warm-up done. The geometric mean between 9 and 13 is what number 1 wants. So geometric mean, remember, is x equal to the square root of a times b, the two numbers you want the mean for. So a in this case is 9, b is 13. So we plug in, x is equal to the square root of 9 times 13. 9 times 13 comes out to be 117. And the square root of 117 is 10.817. For number 2, finding the altitude of A, and remember back to the previous video for geometric mean, we know the altitude is the geometric mean between the numbers that are the lengths of the hypotenuse that it splits the hypotenuse into, so 8 and 3. So A is equal to the square root of 8 times 3. So A is equal to the square root of 8 times 3 is 24. And the square root of 24, it's not quite 25, which means that our answer is not going to be not quite 5. So it's 4.899 when we round. All right, so let's move on to our notes. So our first thing here is just our vocab word for the day is Pythagorean triple. Pythagorean theorem, we already know it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and let's apply that to a couple problems. So first off, a and b are our legs of our triangle. C is our hypotenuse. So here, x is in the position of our hypotenuse, so that's what we're going to try to find. So our a and b can be either 4 or 7. It doesn't matter which one's which. So 4 squared plus 7 squared equals x squared. 4 squared is 16, and 7 squared is 49, equal to x squared. 16 plus 49 is 65, equal to x squared. And then we square root both sides, and the square root will cancel on the right, or the square will cancel with the square root. And the square root of 65 comes out to be almost 11. Wait, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I was looking at the warm-up. It's actually almost 9. 8. Sorry, it's over 8. Man, I'm off on this one. All right, so square root of 65 is just over 64, which means our answer is just going to be just over 8. So it's 8.062. Sorry about that little brain fart there. Happens to the best of us. So let's look at the next problem. Again, finding x. This time, though, x is one of our legs of our triangle, right triangle. So x is either a or b. Well, I like to put it first. Our other leg is the 8, and our hypotenuse is 12. So 8 squared is 64, and 12 squared is 144. Subtract 64 from both sides. Cancels on the left, and x squared is equal to 144 minus 64 is 80. Now, we're going to square root both sides. Cancel the square. And 80 is not quite 81, which means that our answer is going to be not quite 9. 8.944. So now let's look at Pythagorean triples. I don't have any highlighted here, but I definitely suggest that these top 4 either get written down or memorized somehow, because those 4 are the main 4. The ones below those 4 are just multiples of them. So 3, 4, 5, if I multiply each of those numbers by 2, I get 6, 8, 10. That's the next row. If I multiply 3, 4, 5 times 3, I get 9, 12, 15. That's the next row. So that's how this table works. So I suggest you write these 4 down and memorize them if you can. So our next problem here is using those Pythagorean triples. So what we're going to do is, instead of using Pythagorean theorem, which we definitely could do, we're going to take our 2 that we do have. So x is one side. We got 24, and we got 26 as our hypotenuse. So since 24 and 26 are both even, we're going to divide by 2. So this turns into some number, right? We don't know what x is. 24 divided by 2 is 12. 26 divided by 2 is 13. And if you look back at that table that we just looked at, the second one has 12 and 13 as 2 numbers of the Pythagorean triple. The third number is 5. So now we're going to take this 5 and we're going to multiply it times the thing we factored out previously, the 2. 5 times 2 is 10, and that's our x. So x is 10. So now let's look at some more theorems. Converse of the Pythagorean theorem basically just flips it around. Before we said if it's a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now we're saying a squared plus b squared equals c squared, so it's a right triangle. For the second and third theorems here, c squared is less than a squared plus b squared, then it's acute. If c squared is greater than a squared plus b squared, then the triangle is obtuse. So let's look at a couple of examples with this. First, it wants us to decide if they can make a triangle, for one. And 9 plus 12 is 21. 21 is greater than 15, so yes, we can make a triangle. So let's look at what type of triangle it is. So first we're going to take our 15, this is the largest number, and we're going to square it. That's our C. A and B are 9 and 12, they're the lower numbers, so we take those and square them and add them together. 15 squared, by the way, I suggest you memorize the squares. You already have hopefully up till 12. Go ahead and memorize up till 20. At least just the squares. So you got 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 squared memorized. 15 squared is 225. 9 squared is 81. And 12 squared is 144. Notice I'm leaving a blank here. There's a reason for that. I'll show you in a minute. So 225 still. 81 plus 144. 4 plus 1 is 5. 8 plus 4 is 12. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So we got 225. They are equal, which means this is a right triangle. It's actually one of our Pythagorean triples multiplied by 3, by the way. It's the 3, 4, 5 Pythagorean triple. So our next problem, same concept, but now we need to do the same thing with these numbers. So 10 plus 11 is 21 again. 21 is greater than 13, so we can make a triangle. So let's do what we just did. Take the largest number, in this case it's 13, and we square it. Take the other two numbers, 10 squared plus 11 squared. So now we square these numbers. 13 squared is 169, 10 squared is 100, and 11 squared is 121. 169 on the left. 100 plus 121 is 221. Now we're not equal. 169 is less than 221, which means this is an acute triangle. And that is it for our notes. If you didn't finish your vocab the other day, you should probably do that. But go ahead and do your exit ticket as well.